Hey everybody, welcome back to the Escapist. It is Justin and I tonight. Our buddy Matt Knightshade, he is on dad duty tonight. So he's not joining Justin and I here for our Captain America talk. So how you doing, buddy?
Good to be here. Thank you.
And all right, so I saw Cap opening the first day. I know the new Captain America. I know you have not yet, but
Right.
even though you haven't seen the new movie, let me ask you this: did you watch the Disney Plus shows where
I did. I
Sam?
did.
Okay,
I really enjoyed that. Of everything they put out on TV, that was one of my favorite.
okay, so we can talk then because really, I mean, here's what I'll tell you. And this is what if you haven't seen the movie by now, and I'm not giving anything away while we're talking here, but in general, if you haven't seen the movie by now, it's on you at this point, but there will be no spoilers in this one. Just kind of general talk about what other people have talked on YouTube and all that stuff. So, Captain America, the new Captain America is basically, in essence, the Incredible Hulk 2. It's basically a sequel. With instead of Steve Rogers, we got, Sam in the new role of Falcon. So, but let's our topic really, we're talking about Captain America, but we're talking about the legacy. Who do we think who really should be the person to take the mantle after Steve? So, and I know you've got some thoughts.
See, I think that's a fun conversation because we've seen it play out in the comics. We've kind of, between the comics and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've seen the perturbations, the different ways it could go. I don't know if there's a right answer to that question, but I know it's an interesting one. I mean, you can limit it to just Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, but you could also bring in John Walker, number other of heirs to the Shield. Would make for a hell of a conversation, but just focusing on those two, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I mean, I've probably known the Falcon longer than I've known uh, Bucky as a character. I mean, I remember him from the 70s. Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. In the 70s, he was a kid sidekick. He was
Yeah.
still pretty much a kid sidekick. I mean,
Well,
he's of all the Marvel characters, he's the one that's evolved, I think, the most.
I I agree with that one 100%. It's interesting because I think as Sam was probably introduced, or the Falcon was probably introduced because the kind of mid to late 70s kind of diversity push on Marvel
Right.
wanted more characters, and so they kind of paired Captain America with the Falcon. And I mean, it
Yeah.
was even in the line of the comic, Captain
Yeah.
America and Falcon.
Right.
The 70s introduction, that old green costume, it was just such a different character. There was none of that tech. Don't get me wrong. I like the MCU Falcon. I like the design of his
Yeah.
suit. I like the vibranium wings. All very cool. But early Falcon was nothing like that.
Oh
I mean,
no, no. I mean, he had arms with feathers on them, and
it
that's
was a costume. I mean,
yeah. It was exactly that. Yeah.
he could glide from building to building. If he got a good headwind on him, he could glide. And he was paired with a literal falcon called
Yeah.
Redwing.
Right.
Who wasn't? I think they alluded to that early in the cinematic universe with having the drone.
The drone is now Red Wing.
Right,
Now,
right.
yeah.
But I mean, he had a falcon that he could kind of talk to in the Aquaman talking to things type sense.
Yeah.
And it was just a wildly different character, but he was cool. He was really cool. And I think I spoke last time I was on about having that early Captain America issue, that 101, and I have a number of other early issues, and it was neat. It was a neat character. It was a neat dynamic, and so you got the Falcon set up as the longtime partner of Captain America. Then, of course, you have the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, who would eventually kind of step into his own role as Cap of the comics. Have you read that?
Yeah. No, I haven't. I have not read that. I have not read that story arc.
It was good stuff. It was, God, I don't know how many years ago now. But when Bucky finally assumed the role in the comic, I mean, it was cool. The costume was cool. It was black pants on the way down, and then the upper part of the costume was a bit like Cap's, but shiny, as if
Okay.
it was some sort of body armor. Had the shield, also had a pistol with a leather holster on the side. And I remember stumbling across the book years ago and thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. That kind of makes sense. Cap's got a gun now.
Yeah.
And it was a cool run. He did a good version of Cap, a kind of modernized version, if you will. Not derivative, not just slapping the shield and the costume on like with a John Walker type scenario,
Right.
but Bucky made it his own. Of course, there was some variations that I thought they did a really nice job of in the comic, like no super soldier serum. So Bucky got by with that robotic arm that would give him good heft on the shield.
So that, I mean, in the comics, and there was no, he wasn't juiced.
No,
Oh,
no,
I did
as I
not know that.
recall, he was.
I did not know that.
So it's just that robotic arm to give it a good throw, but everything else was, what do they describe it? Peak human condition.
Okay.
So as Cap has been, over the years, Cap's toggled between he's super soldier serumed and he's the peak a human can be. It's been written in and out and in and out so many times over the years that it's I couldn't tell you what it currently stands in continuity. But I don't know. So you have those two characters, and it's and they both filled the role.
Yeah.
At this point, Sam's done it in the comic too. I just didn't happen to read the version of that, having more enjoyed watching it through the MCU, which I assume was somewhat informed by the book.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I can tell,
mean,
and from everything I've read about, a lot of, I mean, I think they did a good job with that TV series and getting him, especially with Isaiah Bradley thrown in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, of all the Marvel TV shows, and I've just wrapped up, talking about Marvel TV shows. I went on a Daredevil binge for the last, I want to say, month, and I just wrapped up like the Iron Fist earlier today.
Really?
Yeah. So I watched Daredevil, and then I watched Jessica Jones, and then The Punisher, and then the first seasons of Iron Fist and Luke Cage, and then the Defenders, and then wrapped up. So I wrapped all that up today. So
that is good TV.
very good, very good. And so obviously the Falcon and the Winter Soldier was right in there in terms of quality. At least I did. But if you listen to, I don't know, there's some people. There's one person who was it, Snarky J, that I follow, and if you do follow her, you'll understand why. I think most men follow her, but she was really she was really crapping all over the new Captain America, the movie. Everybody's crapping on it, and I don't get it.
A lot of that online too, and I think it's a number of things. I think there's to a fair degree comic fatigue, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I tell my boys, there was a time
right
where the only superhero movies you could watch was every 5 or 6 years, on average, Batman would come out. Yeah. You had HBO, you could watch old Supermans, and that was it. That was it. Yeah, no one made movies out of comics. Comics were for kids. That was a stupid idea. You could never make a successful movie out of comics. And now to live in a world where just
they're ubiquitous.
Yep.
They're ubiquitous.
And they can't imagine that time. They don't know a time without it. So I don't know how much I buy the whole comic fatigue thing. I get it. They've been some, less than stellar offerings by the MCU, and
I'm like, I don't know about you, but when it comes to, I'm like, I just want something I can watch and enjoy and forget about the real world for a couple hours.
yeah.
And I don't care if you're, I mean, in this day and age, I really don't care about your message. What you just entertain me for 2 hours. That's all I ask.
And I'm a super poor critique of comic movies because I'm kind of the same. I'm still that kid who can't believe for me it was the Fox X-Men movies. When I saw an X-Men movie, a comic
Yeah.
I read as a kid, when I saw Wolverine and Sabretooth and Cyclops on the screen, I couldn't believe it. It was the coolest thing. And I still look at almost all comic book movies just like that.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see it on the screen. So I'm probably a really poor critic to call it out.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah, I'm the same way.
yeah, people, I mean, for me, hey, I went and saw the new Captain America first day it opened. Now, of course, I'm in Japan, so, and there was actually, I was expecting not as many people, but there was a smattering. There, there were plenty of seats to be had, but there were more people there than I would have imagined to
All
see it.
right.
So, and I live, it's not like I live really in the big city. I live kind of in a medium-sized town, and you know, for me going to the movies, the only way I'm going to see a movie at the theater is if it's a blockbuster coming out. So,
Yeah.
fingers crossed, Thunderbolts comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, fingers crossed about the Thunderbolts.
I'm looking forward to that.
Hey, from what we're seeing in the trailer, I'm like, okay, I'm getting excited about this. I mean, there's a lot of things that are coming up movie wise. Just okay, so you got, and I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but you got Thunderbolts coming up. You've got on Netflix, you have got the Electric State.
Daredevil Born Again.
Daredevil Born Again. Yeah, we got that. I'm
He's
sorry, I
so
should have
good.
mentioned that. But
Gonna be
also too,
so good.
on Netflix, you got the Electric State. If you know what that movie's about.
I don't.
Oh, you gotta look at that. So, there's a Swedish artist who wrote a series of books about alternative. Boy, it's hard for me. Very science fiction type artistic books, and the images in these books. There's a Amazon Prime show called Tales from the Loop. If you've
Yeah.
seen that,
Yeah.
that's where that came from. So
Great
it's from
imagery in that.
it's from that same mind.
All right.
So the Electric State is you just got after we get done here, man. You got to pull it up, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but I think Chris Pratt's in it, and Millie Bobby Brown are both in it. But it's coming out on Netflix. So we've got, I mean, there's a lot of good movies that are coming out this year, both streaming and obviously in the theater. But we've got, I think Gen V we should be getting a new Gen V this season.
All right.
For the boys. And the other day I read they started filming on the boys prequel.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff's coming out. So I mean, it's when it comes to superhero fatigue, I mean, that's easily remedied by good scripts, by good. I mean, The Boys is an excellent example of how to do it right. You can have social commentary and entertain at the same time. And
it's such a hard line to walk, though.
It is.
Many. And I think you have to be a very good writer to pull it off.
Right.
But luckily, we have a lot of great writers out there.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And I mean, if you're willing, and the great thing about The Boys is they're poking fun at both sides, right, which makes that even better. Though it's lean more, they're making more fun of the right. At least last few seasons, but rightly so. So we'll see how again the change in dynamics back home with the politics. We'll see how that affects the scripts going into the final season, which I think is coming out next year. And then, the other shows that have come out, Invincible, the new season of Invincible's out, which I haven't started yet.
Yeah, that's such a great book. I read that. That's one of the first 100-issue independent books that I really delved, and there'd been plenty before that, but I mean that I really made an effort to pick up.
Okay.
first, probably one of the best books to ever come out of the non-big two, is Invincible.
Okay.
And I have a bunch of those issues again out in that shed that I really should probably pull in. They're probably worth $1 or $2 at this point.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of indie comics I got to take a look at. In fact, the other day I found The Lone Gunman on DVD.
Really?
Yeah. Did you ever watch The Lone Gunman when it was on TV for all of 5 seconds?
I think I saw the premiere. I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge X-Files fan, so
I became a huge X-Files fan basically after the show was over.
right.
So,
Same.
yeah, and I watched. I mean, I forget at what season I kind of fell off the tracks. It was probably around, I think, season 7, and then because again they started repeating storyline. But I mean, the X-Files is a great TV show. But to me, anytime the Lone Gunman, it's like when anytime Batgirl was on, the Batman TV show. The same with the Lone Gunman. Oh, this one I have to watch because they were the best part of the show. Yeah. So, but yeah, there was a 12 episode, and then there were 12 episodes, and then in the X-Files they finally wrapped up. And I won't give it away for anybody who has not watched anything about the Lone Gunman or anything. But the way they wrap up their story arc in the X-Files with the Lone Gunman, it's very bittersweet, but it's good. And it's, good writing and but that whole show is about conspiracy theories, but I don't think you could make a show today really about conspiracy theories.
Now they all keep coming true.
Yeah, it's just but so this was the TV show where the first episode was about a plane crashing into the World Trade Center.
The Lone Gunman.
The Lone Gunman. That was the first episode. Now that came out 6 months before the actual incident.
No kidding.
Yeah, by then I think the show was over, had been canceled by then. But yeah. But it's a great. I mean, it's a great TV show. It's but it's hard to find. I mean, you can find the episodes. In fact, I know on YouTube you can find the episodes right now. And the quality is pretty good. And the show has been up there for like 12 years. So I don't know. I don't think anybody's making money off of it, but whoever owns the copyright or distribute, I mean, it is not usually when people put stuff like that up on YouTube, it's gone within a month or two.
Yeah.
But this has been up for like, 12 years. So, but yeah, it's on YouTube.
All right.
You can find it there. Going back to
loop it back around. The reason I'm looking for Thunderbolts, looking forward to that, is to see more of U.S. Agent.
Yes. John Walker.
One of the heirs to the Shield, but not so much so in the cinematic universe, more so in the comic. But let's get back to it. Bucky versus Falcon. Where do you stand? Who ends up with the Shield?
I gotta say Falcon. Only because
if you gotta pick.
If I gotta pick one, I'm taking Sam.
All right, let's throw out your reasons.
I
think I'm gonna fall on the opposite.
For me, it's much like your first Batmobile. The Batmobile you love is the first Batmobile you've ever seen. And it's kind of like with my first Captain America, who's other than Steve Rogers, would be, Sam.
All right.
Yeah. So, and also, and again, not being a Marvel comic guy, I'm DC.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my frame of reference. Now, how about you?
I can make the same argument that for me, reading the comics, Bucky was my first. Well, there was John Walker before Bucky.
Right.
And perhaps that's why he's got a soft place in my heart for such a deeply flawed character. But I don't know. I like both, but I think Barnes should end up. If I had to pick, and I had to stick, I think I'm going to go with Barnes on the Shield. I like the evolution of both characters. I like the idea of both characters getting a run as Captain America. For
Yeah.
me, it boils down to power set, though.
Well,
Sam
yeah.
has the wings.
Sam's
The
got the
wings.
wings.
That's
Sam's got the tech. He really has the tech.
That's a power set in itself, right there. The man can fly.
Yeah.
Does he need the shield? I like him as a patriot.
Well, without giving away too much in the movie, you'll see, he flies around with that shield in the air, and, I don't care who's crapping on the special effects, but what he does with that shield while in flight's pretty amazing.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to look forward to that. But nonetheless, Sam could get by without the shield, especially with the modern interpretation of the wings being vibranium in nature. That is a whole heck of a power set right there.
Right.
And I like him as a patriotic character. I like the evolution from Falcon to Captain America. But then in my mind, I'd have him end up somewhere where he's a mixture of both. I like the name American Eagle.
Okay.
I like it. A patriotic winged hero. Boom. It works. It works. And I they've tinkered at something like that in the comics, but I don't think they've ever executed on it. Whereas
I know there is a public domain character called the Eagle.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe Marvel's public domain, they don't have to worry about tripping over that.
Right. Yeah, no. That's a great thing about the public domain. I mean, that's a whole nother subject, but public domain comic book characters are the best characters to use because you can use them. You don't have to worry about getting sued.
But Bucky, I mean, without the shield, what is he? Assassin. It feels to me like an evolution that has to happen for him because I just don't see that he's much of a character without it. And then you have the whole, Sam Cap go back to the 70s, but Bucky's been around since day one.
Yeah.
An original member of the Invaders. To me, I like that history. I think the character needs it.
Right.
I think when he's not Cap, and like I said in the comic, he became Captain America for a run, then he stepped down. Steve Rogers came back. And when he's not Cap, he's just unused. And Falcon doesn't have that limitation. So that's kind of where the calculus is in my mind.
Okay.
Now, if they could find something for Bucky Barnes to be that's not like a fourth version of Spider-Man, like we got Spider-Man, we got Miles Morales, we got Scarlet Spider,
you've got
these derivations of Spider-Man that all go by Spider-Man while living in New York City. It just gets to be silly at some point.
Well, yeah, at some point, and that's the thing. Sometimes you can just have too much of a good thing.
Yes. And that may be some of the problem that I think is plaguing Marvel is not enough innovative new ideas, too much of going back to that old mill and just being like, let's make a fifth Spider-Man.
Right.
And,
I mean, you can only, if you can only go to the well so often, but, maybe the Thunderbolts will be the thing that kind of honestly, like I said, the new Captain America 4, Incredible Hulk 2, whatever everybody's calling it, is not a bad movie. It's short by Marvel standards, and it does tie up a lot of loose ends. Really some story, stuff that we, not only with the Hulk, but also with the Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had that big giant hand in the middle of the Indian Ocean that after that movie came out, nobody even
should address that. They probably should address the giant hand.
They didn't address that. So at least this, but they again, without giving a whole lot away, but they addressed it, but they really needed to talk about it more. And So when everybody saw it, everybody's posting, hey, and my comment for a lot in a lot of the chats about the movies when I wasn't, poking fun at the politics in America, with all my memes, was the movie needed more cowbell.
Yep.
That's the only way to describe it. Needs more cowbell. And so I don't know.
Well, just sticking with the Captain America theme. Now I'm really looking for Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
U.S. agent. I thought it was such a. I like how they've done that character in the cinematic universe, because one of my favorite things about like the Ultimates, the first run of the Ultimates from Marvel, which was kind of a re-envisioning in the early 2000s of the Avengers, who are now simply the Ultimates.
Right.
They did re-envisioning of Spider-Man. They did a re-envisioning of X-Men that wasn't quite as good. But I really love the Avengers in the continuity of imagining the invention of Captain America and the super soldier serum were like a bolt of lightning that they've been trying to replicate.
Mm-hmm.
And Banner, Banner was that. He was the chief scientist trying to replicate the super soldier serum, and he turned himself into a monster. And I loved that because it kind of tied it all together.
Yeah.
And it seemed like something the government would definitely do.
Yeah.
After they created a super soldier, they're not going to give up on the program. They're going to try to figure it out. And the idea of going 70, 80 years, and the best you can do is a gray monster that eats people, was cool. And what I liked about some iterations of, there was like a 50s Captain America, but John Walker I paid attention to because I bought all those books as a kid.
Yeah.
The idea of trying to recapture the super soldier serum,
Mm-hmm.
and they give it to a good guy, a patriot, loves his country, but the serum drives you a little crazy.
Yeah. And
I like that storyline, this flawed Captain America, this dark Captain America. By no virtue of the character, but by the treatment he's received. Great power, but also horrible side effects.
Right.
And they seem to be exploring that in the Marvel universe, at least from what I saw from the TV show. And I'm really hoping he gets to play a big part in the upcoming movie, because we got essentially 3 Captain America characters.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you've got Red Guardian, you got Bucky, you've got, John Walker. Now, the John Walker of the movies never had the super serum, though. Didn't have a derivative. If I remember correctly in that 6-part series, they didn't give him a super serum.
Really?
Yeah. So that's
never took it.
Yeah, there wasn't. I think that was addressed in the first few minutes. He never took the supers, but he was handed the shield. But
I'm blending the comic, because the comic he did.
Okay.
But yeah.
I mean,
I might have to go revisit the show.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Oh yeah, it was excellent. I mean, I might go revisit that. Of course, we've got, like I said, we got Daredevil coming out next week. So I'm wrapped up with that whole Netflix Defenders shows. But I need to rewatch Hawkeye, because in Hawkeye, the Kingpin comes back.
That's right. Doesn't he get killed though?
No. Well, if he did, I mean, I think
they did a poor job of it. If they did,
yeah.
Maybe he just got the crap beaten out of him. But
Hawkeye kicked the crap out of him, and I think they just assumed, there was just an assumption of death or something. But
because we never expected. I mean, we were told that, again, and all those shows you watched are fantastic.
Yeah.
We were told that those were non-canon. And that pissed me off, because the whole time I was watching the Netflix shows, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is Marvel Universe. This is Marvel Universe. Don't you worry. We have a."
But it was all canon, because if you.
Oh, I know.
if you look closely and listen closely, you're like, oh, okay,
It tied into the movies. It reflected the movies from the first show.
right.
But then a few years later, after they kind of all stopped, the MCU was like, no, those shows didn't count anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they said. In fact, I was watching something too because they were talking to this Charlie Cox and the guy Vincent D'Onofrio. I can't remember
Right,
how to
but then
pronounce
they
it.
both showed up in the movies, and it's like,
Yeah, but they
are
were
you-
talking about. They had the same questions too, and they were told that yes, your stuff is canon. So but Marvel did it really well. It just kind of had it for background imagery or in passing so as to at
yeah.
least tie it, but nobody dwells on it. I mean, like, okay,
But that's the
so
same. That's the same reason comics work. The
right,
common universe.
right,
And Marvel, the reason Marvel's had, if you want to get to the root of it, the reason Marvel's had such success over DC is they realized this early on from
yeah,
point go, the non-Fox Marvel movies.
right,
They started connecting movies, which was crazy at the time.
yeah,
People that didn't read comics.
right,
And so I'm glad the Netflix stuff they've kind of come around on.
yeah.
I didn't think there was any reason. I think it was a control issue. The Marvel universe was getting big, a little bit,
Oh yeah, there's a ton of legal reasons, for it.
unwieldy, and they're like, well, we don't want to be hemmed in by anything these Netflix shows did. So
Right.
Netflix shows, you're not important.
But like how I think Netflix did it right was, especially in Luke Cage, because that's where it really became noticeable. Well, nobody ever talks about Stark Technologies, but they do introduce Hammer Tech.
Yeah,
They talk about that company, and actually, that Hammer plays a huge role in
Iron Man.
Luke Cage.
Yeah,
No, in
yeah,
Luke in Luke
Iron
Cage.
Man 2.
Yeah, in Iron Man 2.
So we get that kind of throwback, but at the same time, they can do what they want with it because it's not like
Right.
we've been dwelling on Hammer Tech.
Yeah,
So
and they
I
talk
think it's
about,
a freedom thing.
and they also talk too about technology from the incident, derived from the incident.
The incident, yes.
Yeah, and they don't, and there's occasional, I thought there would be more, brought into, like, especially Luke Cage, and I also watched Iron Fist too, and it wasn't a bad show, but sometimes shows just go on longer than they need to, and that was one of them.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I remember that feeling in Iron Fist.
Yeah, same way too. Even with I don't know if you remember watching Pennyworth.
No, never saw
Okay,
that.
so that was the story, the series about Alfred
Figured.
when he was young and just out of the SAS, and there was only 3 seasons, and it really needed a 4th season to wrap up everything. But there were some, it just sometimes it's like, okay, where is this show? Wait a minute, they didn't have, like, for instance, in the show, Thomas and Martha Wayne have a baby, but it's not Bruce Wayne. It's their, like, wait a minute, he didn't have it. Wait, he was an only child. Wait, where is this daughter coming? It made no sense. And then they get after the third. There's no wrap up.
I hate that.
And then, okay, so this is what pissed me off too. So I see there's a Pennyworth comic. I go, well, apparently, I'm just assuming that the comic book picks up right from where they left off and explains everything away. No, didn't. Like, you got to be. I mean, there was absolutely no payoff, and it was a good show. It was very much a period piece. It was set in the '60s.
All right.
It was really visually, it was great. But yeah, there was no payoff. My big, they had a woman playing the Queen of England who, you got to see it, but they played the Queen of England as a swinging single. Queen Elizabeth was, was not married in this version of Queen Elizabeth in this alternate universe. So,
interesting.
Yeah, it was good though. But that's the frustration with when they take a comic book character and they put their own I love it when they put their own spin on it, like in Elseworlds and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're going to tell a story and modify things like that, don't be don't. You got to have ultimate the people that enjoy the people that the fans deserve a payoff. So if you're going to do like a mini series, like these series on Netflix or even like I said, the Pennyworth, okay, then give us a comic book that wraps everything up, because you can finish telling the story in comic book form.
No, I agree. I agree, and it's a whole separate show.
Yeah.
But I think one of the big failings of modern comics, big failings of both the big two, is this inability to tie in to the hype generated by the movies. You could be steering a million normies that are excited about a character from the theaters right into the book, but somehow every time a movie comes out, the book is doing something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember one example where like Iron Man was at his peak of popularity. And so people are rushing in the stores and they're finding Riri Williams as Iron Man. I'm not saying that wasn't a good run, but maybe when Tony Stark is the coolest thing on cinema, you should probably have Tony Stark in the book.
Yeah.
And I just, these kind of just, I mean, these aren't big brain things. These are like business 101 that, I could go off on a tangent, but it's almost like the comics division is meant to die. And I don't know, maybe the movies, that's the future. Maybe they feel they have the intellectual property. And at this point, they're trying to come up with some new books, but the paucity of new storylines that are really gripping or original seems to be dropping off the map.
Yeah.
Highly related to how much the big two is paying talent these days.
Right. Well, I'm just worried, for instance, that the Thunderbolts is going to be just another. I mean, they're the Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, obviously.
Right.
So how much of that movie is going to be influenced by the Suicide Squad? And there was a real bad Suicide Squad movie and okay Suicide Squad movie. So I don't. I mean, the dearth of there's just a lack of original ideas. For a lot of these movies.
Yeah. I'm hoping Thunderbolts won't go that route and kind of carve its own path. Give us
with the Superman movie. I mean, I think all of us are we're excited but yet nervous at the same time. Is DC going to drop the ball yet again?
Yeah. Well, here I'll say this. James Gunn took an unloved Marvel property, Guardians of the Galaxy. No fan base there. No real interest. When I heard they were making a Guardians movie, I'm like, why the hell are they making a Guardians movie? They don't know how many better comics are out there.
Yeah.
And somehow they made some just really great flicks.
Yeah.
That they turned a cast of, not even the Guardians, not even probably the more well-known Guardians from the comic, but they picked the right characters and they made them interesting.
Yeah.
To the point where I watched the friggin' Christmas special. I'd become enough of a fan that I was out there on day one with my kids, watching that. And if they can do that for Guardians, if James Gunn can do that for Guardians, then I have high hopes for Superman. And, I did read something where they're talking about, not that I didn't I liked Henry Cavill's Superman. I really did.
Yeah.
But, leaning into the camp. With a character like Superman, you got to lean into the camp. You can't reject it. You got to fold it in. You need crypto. You need the red underpants. It's part of what we love about Superman. And I believe new audiences can grow to love that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know maybe it's the same way in your house, but when you saw the trailers, like my wife, she's like, "Oh, I'll go see that."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's got a dog in it. Everybody loves a dog. And it's a super dog too. So he's indestructible. And they're not going to do anything, unlike John Wick, they're not going to do anything horrible to crypto.
John Wick Superman.
Yeah. I mean, there's just, he's in, so yeah, I agree 100% with you. And going back to about, the tie-ins with the movies, if you remember, when the first Batman movie came out, Batman 89.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and so that was a golden opportunity for DC to capitalize on that, and they really didn't. They really, I mean, it just we saw what happened with the Batman franchise after that. But yeah, I don't know. Some of the decisions, the studios and the publishing side make, it's like, you guys are kind of in it together, and the
Don't act
books,
like it.
the book should be, supporting the movie, and the movie should be supporting the books. But
And again, I think you could build a whole show out of that, because it really is so egregious, and there's so many examples where honestly it feels like the books branch and the movies branch are almost moving at odds.
yeah,
And maybe the comics branch feels like movies are out to extinguish them, so they feel
yeah,
they have to differentiate. But you're right, from a business perspective, it's terrible, and from a making new comics readers perspective,
yeah,
it's terrible. I
right,
mean, I fear that the very medium, again, a whole nother show, but
yeah,
I figure the very medium could go out with you and me. That my sons, one of them likes comics.
right,
We'll go to the store together and pick up some books, but he never really asked to go on his own. He
yeah,
appreciates it, he enjoys it, but he doesn't see it as a principal medium.
right,
Rather see his comic heroes on the screen.
yeah,
And I have to wonder, did it have to be that way?
right.
Or could they have, done a little more to maybe have the next generation grow up loving the smell of that paper and the feel.
Yeah. Well, then too, add in the, I'm gonna sound like old men, but you and I are both in our 50s now. So
Yelling
back
at clouds.
when we were kids, I mean, you had TV, movies, print medium. Now, the phone. I mean, needless to say, the phones have divided up that everything's been fragmented. So, I've got digital comics. That's how I do my thing. I was able to bring some comic. I brought up my entire Shazam collection, Captain Marvel collection, over with me, the actual paper ones. But everybody's the comic book industry's future is digital at this
Yeah,
point.
I've heard that, and I believe it. And
Yeah.
hey, I got a couple thousand books in Comixology. I
Yeah.
enjoy it. I enjoy that. In some ways, it's the way they zoom in and enhance on the smaller panels and a level of detail that I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the book persists, as
yeah,
a format.
right.
Even if it is digital, even if they don't get to smell the
Right.
paper.
But like you said,
I don't see my kids, demanding.
right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Just in terms of in general, whether it be in print or electronically, that audience is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
I mean, in Japan, I mean, when I first got here, you'd see people on the trains reading manga.
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody's looking at their phones, and it's not necessarily everybody's reading manga on their phones. I mean, a lot of people are, but most people are surfing.
Selling really well as compared to American comics. I wonder if it's done a better job of the digital kind of slide over than American comics have. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. It's one of those where, I could research it, but I don't know. I have no idea just how accessible manga is.
I'm generally curious.
Yeah, I mean, I know manga. I mean, you get manga novels on Comixology, and
right,
everything's right there. So, but no, and I also too, I don't like looking at what I don't like looking over somebody's shoulder and seeing what they're looking at on the train. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, back in the day, they had a book. You knew what they were reading, but not like that anymore.
It could be a little dangerous. Yeah.
So it's but yeah, so we'll see. So hey, listen, man. Thanks for tonight, and we're gonna
Oh,
wrap. Let's wrap everything up, and you and I will talk more a little bit offline after the credits roll on this. But yeah, no, thanks for stopping in tonight, and hopefully, when you go back, because I know it's going to be a huge time change difference, but we're definitely going to see you again. It might be evening where you're at, and it might be morning here when we do one of those shows.
hey, I always enjoy talking comics.
Yeah. And for everybody, thanks for tuning in. I know, slowly but surely people are finding us on YouTube. I mean, when we do the live stream at this time of day, it is, and I don't have a watch, but I know it's, hell, the sun's just starting to, the morning papers are just coming out right about now in the States. So
Yeah.
most people are waking up and are thinking about waking up and getting ready for the day. Um, so we'll see how many people tune in for this one. So, but hey, with all that said, and if, the funny thing is here, while we were talking before, people were wondering what I was doing with the screen and everything. The way the web camera is on my desk, and I get cross-eyed knowing where to look, and then I'm looking at myself in the screen here going, okay, where are my eyes going? So I've been flipping around stuff here like this, and just trying to get a better feel of where to look at the camera. So that's for those people who are listening just to the audio portion. You're not able to see all this, but on the YouTube version and on the Rumble version, and on Twitch, and hopefully soon on X, we'll be doing the live streams too. That was your computer too, right?
Think so.
Yeah. So, yeah. So listen, with all that said, and Matt, if you're tuning in, you're listening right now. Hey, we miss you, but poor Matt is, like I said, Matt's a new dad, and he's 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 learning all about fatherhood, all the lessons you have learned, especially in the last few years where you had, I was going to say 3 girls, but no, you got 2 girls and you got a boy.
Girls and a boy.
And so, yeah, I mean, it just, what it's like with a newborn, and it's nonstop. So that's where Matt's at right now. So, but yeah, everybody, hey, check us out. We're at NavyComics.com and at Navy Comics on social media, except for Twitch, where we are at Navy Comics TV. And with all that said, hey, thanks for tuning in, and we will be seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
You still there?